Hey friends, welcome back to my channel, MBC Lifestyles Diary. My name is Marie. I live in New York and I love fashion, travel, and cultural events, and I'm asking you to join me on the adventure. We're just coming from the super fine exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and there was an exhibit and part of it that showed the history of Haiti and the leaders. And one of the artifacts on display was this beautiful jeweled sword. And my cousin Gina, who you've met before, gave me a little history on that sword and the context in which to see it. So I'm passing over the mic to Gina.
Thank you, Marie. So we did walk through the Superfine exhibit, which had a lot of wonderful examples of dandyism, finery, and beautifully designed costume worn by everyday people as well as distinctive personalities. And there was a historical and a social context in that exhibit associated with all these textiles and objects. One item that got our attention was a beautiful, finely crafted sword, or as they would say in the French language, épée. And that was possession of a monarch from Haiti. It was actually the third person who had proclaimed themselves as a monarch in Haiti around 1850. And his name was Faustin Elie Suluk. So he went from being President Suluk to having himself crowned as an emperor of Haiti around 1850. And his reign spanned 8 to 9 years. So my question about that object when I was, focusing on that was that object is in a private collection. And it is, for me, I think it's like a loss if such an object is not in the National Archives and preserved along all the memorable objects that can remind us of the journey of Haiti, pre and post independence. But it was still good to get to see it. And there were other items in the Superfine exhibit that are worthy of note. And some of them were associated again with the history of Haiti, including engravings and portraits of the important figures of independence and the first people who were leaders of Haiti, and people who did not make it to see independence, although they worked very hard to make it happen, such as Toussaint Louverture. And there were portraits of them, engravings, and of course it was focused on the way they presented themselves. And the articles of clothing were the subject of the exhibit, but it still brought in a lot of social and historical context. So if you do get a chance to see the Superfine exhibit, I definitely want to call your attention to that small section where they feature the historic object, which was a sword, épée, that belonged to Suluk, Faustin Ier, the first emperor in 1850, who I would say was the third emperor crowned in 1850, and all the associated other items related to the history of Haiti.
I also want you to tell the story of the crown, because he was modeling himself on emperors, and he made a crown with jewels.
Yes.
So tell me what you noted about the crown.
So having seen the object of Faustin Ier that was in the exhibit, I also associated it in my mind with the surviving crown that is still, I believe, in Haiti for that emperor. So the unfortunate thing about the crown is, although it was originally a massively well-crafted, fine jewel crown that was, I'm sure, ordered from the master craftsmen of France, it featured a lot of stones. And over time, those stones have been removed, and now a lot of them are missing. And the crown is not in public view. And I'm hoping that it's still being treasured and preserved as part of the legacy from Faustin Ier. And I'm hoping that, despite instability and despite unpredictability in our circumstances, the historical things that are meaningful not just to us but the entire Caribbean and the history of the America are still part of our archives and legacy. that we can have it be.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you very much.
Please continue to enjoy the things that we featured about this exhibit. The exhibit, Superfine, Tailoring Black Style, at the Metropolitan Museum is on display until October 26th. I would recommend you rush and go see it before its closing. It is based on the book Slaves to Fashion by Monica Miller, who is also the guest curator. This exhibit is divided into sections, all of them depicting an aspect of Black male dandyism and her interpretation of what that meant. The definition of dandyism, an 18th century label for the obsessive male dresser, later defined by Charles Baudelaire as the male aspiration to becoming uninterruptedly sublime. Today, the term can be employed to describe sartorial values or looks, also an adjective for something great. His penny loafers were just dandy. This is a quote from Virgil Abloh, The Vocabulary According to Virgil Abloh. This exhibit was sponsored by Louis Vuitton. So the sections that this exhibit is broken up into is ownership, presence, distinction, disguise, freedom, champion, respectability, juke, heritage, beauty, cool, cosmopolitanism. The title, Superfine, was from the memoir of an enslaved man that purchased his freedom. The title of his memoir was Superfine, in which he describes being able to buy himself a superfine suit that gave him such joy in being able to own and display his own body. The enslaved man was Helado Equiano, and those are some words from his memoir, and this is the title of the exhibit. But Superfine makes me think of Curtis Mayfield's song, Superfly. So the description of this exhibit is that it's a cultural, historical examination of Black style that spans 300 years through the concept of dandyism, the 18th century Atlantic world, a new culture of consumption, fueled by the slave trade, colonialism, and imperialism, enabling access to clothing and goods, indicating wealth, distinction, and taste. It was the intersection of African and European style. The head of the Costume Institute at the Metropolitan Museum of Art states that it's been 20 years since there's been an exhibit of menswear. He felt that it was important to share this cultural and historical examination of Black style. There's a lot in this exhibit, and I don't feel I can do it justice on this vlog. The only thing I can do is really tell you, please go see this exhibit. It's very enlightening, and I ended up enjoying it a lot more than I expected to. If you want more details about this exhibit, the Met has a wonderful video online that will give you more details about the different pieces and what you're looking at and the intention behind it. But in this vlog, all I can do is tell you of how it spoke to me. And for me, it just showed the resilience of Black people. It's interesting how it was presented as dandyism, and yet it teaches the viewer so much history, so much about class struggle, so much about what clothes means and how the coding can depict the status of another human being. It goes into discussion of rich versus poor, quiet luxury versus ostentatious labels. It shows how mankind is always seeking to divide, differentiate, rather than show that we are all humans and we are all one and we have a lot more in common than what divides us. That these false labels, which divide and give a false sense of superiority or inferiority, and how an oppressed people creatively fought to change the narrative. This exhibit reminds me of how they attack our Black joy. They try to denigrate it, just like understanding the history of watermelon and fried chicken. Watermelon, one of the hardest crops to grow, but newly freed, emancipated Black farmers worked hard to make a living with this crop. And when the oppressors saw this, they made fun of it. Fried chicken was a food that Black women cooked and sold on trains. This enabled them to earn a living. Fried chicken was made fun of. Haiti, the first and only successful slave rebellion. And over, they just caused problems for the country and fling out the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere while they are the ones that caused that poverty. This exhibit shows how those things that were tossed upon us that we had no control over, we still managed to find a way to have human dignity in these circumstances. Whether it was by the way we choose to express ourselves through clothing, or by the creative arts, by our song, or by dancing, we found a way to make it through. One of the parts of the exhibit which showed how dandyism was ridiculed, especially in England, where they called it mungo macaroni. But here was an enslaved man that got his freedom and actually was taken under the patronage of a duchess that gave him an education, taught him fencing, and the underlying tone enjoyed his company. He was known as a dandy and made fun of, but he did not let go of his style. He resisted this mocking. This exhibit gave Haiti its due. It showed a portrait of Toussaint Louverture, which nobody really knows what he looks like, but he was a legend that fought for our independence. And in it, we see the masculine swagger, the personal pride that exemplifies his stance for freedom, as glorified by the French novelist Alexandre Dumas, who was also, his mother was Haitian. So there are different parts here, and they also exhibited the leaders of that revolution, and those leaders that ruled Haiti crowned themselves king or emperor of certain regions. But it gives Haiti its due as marking it as the only successful slave rebellion, and that can never be taken away from them. And how Haiti influenced the Western Hemisphere and the Caribbean. Also shows Marcus Garvey, the Jamaican that decided that we should all just leave and go back to Africa, and how he dressed himself as an emperor, as a king. And also the influence of the Ethiopian emperor Haile Selassie, who shows the connection between Africa and Caribbean cultures. As stated before, this exhibit is in sections, and it shows the areas in which Black men were allowed to excel, and of course that's in entertainment. So they have the frilled shirt from Prince and Purple Rain. They have a sports section which showed how the athletes provided swagger. So as I said, it's extensive. I don't feel that I'm doing it justice, but you will enjoy this exhibit. They also honor Andre Leon Talley. They show his garments from the House of Dior. They showed Balmain. It's called the Legion of Balmain because he has such devoted followers. They showed the Jamaican Cayman designer Jawar Aline. and his designs that were influenced from his home. They showcase the fine tailoring of Savile Road in London and Madison Avenue in New York. They just exemplified the talent and creativity and beauty that Black designers brought to the fashion world. They also highlighted the fluidity in gender. So in terms of having women that decided to pass for men and how they tailored their clothes, and they had some noteworthy lesbians and women that found that they got better employment passing as a cisgender male. It was just a lot, if you can't tell by what I'm describing. I was mesmerized by each display and the history behind it. And then it goes back to also how clothes was used to pass, or, they have the story of a husband and wife that used clothing to flee to the North for freedom. The wife could pass for white, and she got her husband to pass as her trusted male servant. And as a seamstress in secondhand stores, she was able to design clothing that passed them off as a wealthy landowner and her well-dressed servant. So there's the history of that, a book of that memoir. They also showed the way Black men in slavery dressed, and the abolitionists would use this portrait to show the suffering of the Black males and how slavery should be abolished. And on the other hand, we had the free man, Frederick Douglass, who fought for the abolishment of slavery, and how he carried himself and dressed finely to represent and to be seen and respected as a man. So much. I feel like I'm overwhelming you when it would be best for you to go see it. It ends October 26th. The catalog, Superfine, is a wonderful book, and as I was going through it, I found some quotes that I really enjoyed, and this one is by the photographer Tyler Mitchell, and he starts off with the quote, "Beauty was not simply something to behold, it was something one could do." This by Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye. The second quote was, "Look the part, be the part, mother." Proposition Joe, Game Day, The Wire. And Tyler goes on to state, "My understanding of the power and performance of clothes clicked long before I entered the world of fashion. A white friend visiting my hometown of Atlanta had marveled at how stylish Black people in the city were. What he noticed was something I had always known, our singular ability to style out, to show up when the occasion calls for it, and more tellingly, often when it does not. As Monica L. Miller writes in Slaves to Fashion, Black dandyism and the styling of Black dysphoric identity, whether donning a color-coordinated sweatsuit paired perfectly with a new era hat or an expertly tailored suit with complementary cufflinks, a tie bar, and a hat with the brim curled just right, Black people have long understood the transformative power of clothes and the stories they tell about who we are. In this visual essay, my aim was not only to depict visions of profound camaraderie, beauty, and joy, though that alone would have been a worthy pursuit, but to explore how Black individuals have appropriated and transformed classical European fashion into something uniquely our own."
If you enjoyed this content, please remember to give me a thumbs up. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow.